Pakistan. China has assured Pakistan its backing in defending its sovereignty and territorial integrity. This as Iran announced the integration of new combat reconnaissance and radar drones into its army. Of course, this and a lot more right here on World DN in the next 60 minutes. Let's get you started with the headlines.
Former US President Donald Trump lands a knockout blow to Nikki Haley in the battle to become Republican presidential nominee in New Hampshire primary.
Amid already escalating West Asia tensions, US carries out fresh airstrikes in Iraq, targeting facilities used by Iranian-backed militias following repeated attacks on US forces.
Lebanese militant group Hezbollah releases video launching missiles it claims were used to attack Israel's Mount Meron air base for the second time in a month.
Pro-Palestinian protesters disrupt US President Joe Biden just a minute into his speech on abortion rights in Virginia.
Turkish parliament ratifies Sweden's NATO membership bid, clears the biggest remaining hurdle to expanding Western military alliance after a 20-month delay.
The first major final of the post-Roman Abramovich era beckons for Chelsea. The Blues smash 6 past second-tier side Middlesbrough to book a date at Wembley.
Our top focus this morning, former US President Donald Trump has won the New Hampshire primary, first in America primaries, that is. With this, Trump has established himself as the first choice of Republicans.
Well, and he's cleared his path for Republican nomination at the outset. But rival Nikki Haley, who is Trump's lone challenger now in the Republican race, says that the contest is far from over.
I want to congratulate Donald Trump on his victory tonight. He earned it, and I want to acknowledge that. New Hampshire is first in the nation. It is not the last in the nation. This race is far from over. There are dozens of states left to go.
Numbers so far show Donald Trump sweeping the Republican contest and delivering a fresh setback to his rival Nikki Haley. The magnitude of Trump's victory is still coming into focus, but the lead is not as much as was the case in Iowa, where, of course, Shivan, we saw that it was a very clear victory for Trump.
Yes.
And Nikki Haley has closed the gap on Trump in the head-to-head New Hampshire race.
Now, out of the 24% votes counted in the Republican race so far, 53% are in Trump's support, while 45% voters back Haley. Now, Haley was counting on moderates and independents in the state who outnumber the registered party members to pull off an upset for Trump. Nikki Haley has declared that she will not quit the presidential nomination race even if she loses New Hampshire to Trump. Now, this is what she had initially said, and she's sticking to it even now.
Right, and Haley came third in Republican race in Iowa last week. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who came second in Iowa, has quit the race, has decided to support Trump instead. Now, Trump won a crushing victory, as we mentioned earlier, in the first contest in Iowa last week. And now he did the same in New Hampshire. Trump now seems to be guaranteeing his presidential nomination. No Republican has ever won both the opening contest and not secured the party nomination.
Now, Republican primaries will send 22 bound delegates to the party's national convention. They will be voting whether for Haley or for Trump as per the results from the states. And in the Democrats' camp, of course, incumbent President Joe Biden has won the primary with close to a 80% majority as a write-in candidate. An internal party dispute over the primary's date led Biden off the ballot paper. National Democrats made South Carolina the first official state on its nominating calendar. But New Hampshire's party chose to stick with Tuesday's state-run primary. No delegates will be awarded from the contest.
And for more on this, we're now being joined by VOA correspondent Chris Casqueo, live from New Hampshire. Thank you so much for joining us, Chris. Now, my first question to you is, of course, all exit polls show Trump in the lead. Of course, we know that this is a clear win for Donald Trump as much. However, it's important to mention that not by the same margin as which he won in Iowa. Now, what I want to understand is, what does this mean, of course, one for Trump going forward, as well as for Nikki Haley, who's come in second? Because these two contests are usually seen as the litmus test for who will actually be the Republican presidential nominee.
Right. Let's give you some of the latest numbers. With about a third of the vote in, 33% of the vote in, Trump's margin is 53.9. He has 53.9% of the vote, and Nikki Haley has 45.1% of the vote. Now, let's consider that she was behind in every poll by 10 to 20 points. So anything within a 10-point margin, her camp could sell as a close second and could justify her telling her donors and her backers and voters in subsequent primaries that she should stay in the race, and she still offers an alternative to Donald Trump, and she's a viable alternative to Donald Trump. But Trump, for his part, is saying that he is going to be the nominee, and some of the exit polling says that, from Fox News, that 4 out of 10 voters who showed up here in New Hampshire today say that immigration was the most important issue and why they backed Trump. And 3 in 10 of the voters in that Fox News exit poll say the economy was the most important issue. Haley was trying to present herself as the moderate candidate for a moderate electorate here in New Hampshire. The number of undeclared voters, 344,000, actually outnumbers the number of registered Democrats or registered Republicans here. So it was really seen as her best chance to win a primary, and in subsequent primaries that are coming up, she is polling more than at least 30 points behind Donald Trump.
So that was essentially what I was wanting to understand from you next. Of course, South Carolina is next, and Nikki Haley has made it clear that she does not want to give up. This is not the end for her. But even though she's coming in as a close second, at least as per exit polls in New Hampshire, do you feel the other primaries here, Nikki Haley still holds some kind of a tough chance for Trump?
Well, it's going to be an uphill battle for Nikki Haley because on the Republican side, South Carolina has a much more evangelical and conservative electorate than New Hampshire, which is seen as a moderate state and really seen as Nikki Haley's best chance to win a primary.
Right, Chris, I also want to understand, even among his supporters, some exit polls do suggest that there is a division over whether Trump would be fit for office if convicted. Can Trump's legal troubles weigh him down?
Well, so far we haven't seen that they have weighed him down. In fact, Trump seems to be using the courtroom as campaign stops. I mean, he was in court last week during his defamation trial in the E. Jean Carroll case, and he didn't have to be there, but he was there because he really wanted to make a spectacle of things. So, and his approval ratings among Republicans, among his likely voters, seem to go up anytime one of his court cases is in the news. But he has a lot on his plate legally. He has the case in Georgia. He has the immunity case before the U.S. Supreme Court, and then Jack Smith's case, the special prosecutor's case in D.C.
Chris, going forward, I just wanted to get your thoughts on this. Is a combination of Trump's loyalists and his thrust on the economy and immigration, is that enough for him to win this all the way through, even if he's through from the Republican House? Is it enough for him to win the seat back?
Well, we'll have to see. Trump and Biden are polling close in most polls. They're neck and neck, although some polls suggest that Trump is leading in the key battleground states that usually decide the elections. But Nikki Haley had pitched herself as the candidate that could beat Biden, and the polls showed that, at least some of the polls that are out there now, show that she was leading Biden by a more substantial margin than Trump. So she had really positioned herself as the candidate on the Republican side who could beat Trump. So we'll have to see what happens as these nominating primaries go on.
So all isn't lost yet. Of course, we are going to be tracking all this closely with you on ground. Thank you so much for joining in, Chris Casqueo, who's from Voice of America, and always a pleasure speaking with you. West Asia continues to remain tense as the conflict between the United States and Iran-backed militias in Iraq continue to be on the boil.
In the latest, the United States carried out fresh strikes on facilities used by Iran-backed militants as a response to the attacks on American armed forces deployed in Iraq and Syria.
The U.S. Central Command posted a statement on social media platform X that says, and I'm going to quote here, on January 24th at 12:15 a.m., the U.S. Central Command forces conducted unilateral airstrikes against 3 facilities used by Iranian-backed Kataib Hezbollah militia group and other Iran-affiliated groups in Iraq. Now, the statement further read that the strikes targeted the Kataib Hezbollah headquarters, their storage facilities, training locations for missiles and one-way attack UAV capabilities.
According to the Pentagon, the American armed forces and its military allies have been attacked in over 150 attacks in Iraq and Syria since October last year. Iran's onslaught comes at a time when Washington, D.C. has openly backed Israel in its war against Hamas after the deadly October 7th attack carried out by the Palestinian militant outfit.
Significantly, the United States has also carried out retaliatory strikes in Iraq and Syria as a tough response to Iran, including one that killed a pro-Iran commander of Hashid al-Shabi in Baghdad on the 4th of January.
Also, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has proposed a 2-month pause in the war with Hamas. This is part of the leader's multi-phase deal, which includes the release of all remaining hostages.
The message for the truce was conveyed to Hamas by Qatari and Egyptian mediators and comes just 2 days after Prime Minister Netanyahu rejected Hamas' deal to end the war. Now, the announcement follows mounting domestic pressure for Netanyahu over Israel's wartime government to bring the captives back home. The government is also being faced with a cabinet rift over the handling of the war in Gaza.
As per reports, the truce deal could take place in stages. The planned deal will first see the release of women and men who are over 60 years of age and require medical assistance. The following stages will involve the release of Israeli soldiers, civilians and bodies of the dead captives.
Meanwhile, after the fighting fled on Tuesday, Israeli military encircled southern Gaza's Khan Yunis, a designated safe zone for Palestinians. As per Gaza's health ministry, the partially functioning hospitals in the city are reeling under extreme danger from Israeli bombardment. The ministry has flagged threat over Nasser Medical Complex and El Amal Hospital and has asked for intervention to safeguard these facilities.
On Tuesday, Israeli military reported its deadliest day of war after 21 soldiers were killed in Gaza. Israel's military chief, Herzi Halevi, also confirmed the death of the soldiers. Listen to this.
On this day, We feel the great and painful cost of war, but that which we are fighting is necessary and justified. We will continue to fight for our clear right to live here securely.
On the same day, Palestinian and Israeli ambassadors to UN clashed over the possibility of a ceasefire. At the meet, the UN chief, Antonio Guterres, continued to press for the release of Israeli hostages. Take a listen to this.
There are only two paths ahead. One that starts with Palestinian freedom and leads to shared peace and security in our region, or one that continues denying this freedom and dooms our region to further bloodshed and endless conflict.
Meanwhile, pro-Gaza protesters repeatedly interrupted U.S. President Joe Biden's poll campaign. The demonstrators holding Palestinian flags interrupted the speech about 8 times in Virginia.
Meanwhile, Iran-backed Lebanese militant group Hezbollah has claimed to have hit the Israeli airbase of Mount Meron for the second time in a month. The group released a video of missiles being fired, saying that the retaliation was over Israeli attacks on Lebanon and Syria.
And after a long wait, Turkey's parliament has approved Sweden's NATO membership bid.
Definitely has been a long bid here. Now, Turkish lawmakers ratified Sweden's accession protocol by 287 votes to 55 votes. This ends the 20-month-long delay that had frustrated Turkey's Western allies. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan is expected to sign the bill into law in the coming days. Turkey had been stalling Sweden's membership for more than a year, of course, 20 months that is. It had accused the Nordic country of being too lenient towards certain militia groups that Ankara considers as a security threat.
Turkey had also been angered by a series of demonstrations by supporters of the outlawed Kurdistan Workers' Party in Sweden. The Quran burning by a far-right politician outside the Turkish embassy in Stockholm last year also led to the suspension of NATO membership talks.
Sweden and Finland had applied for NATO membership in May 2022 following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Now, this was seen as a significant shift as both the Nordic nations had followed a policy of non-alignment during the Cold War era. Finland joined the military alliance in April 2023. However, Sweden faced several hurdles in its path to accession. Erdogan's resistance to Sweden's membership was seen as a nuanced stance towards Moscow. Hungary is now the only NATO country that has not yet ratified Sweden's accession.
Now, the move has been acknowledged by Ankara's Western allies. U.S. Ambassador to Turkey, Jeffrey Flake, took to social media platform X to welcome Turkey's decision. On the other hand, the German government also appreciated the outcome of the Turkish parliament vote.
In a not-so-covert move, the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, or the CIA, has unveiled a video trying to persuade Russian intelligence employees to switch sides and work as double agents for Washington.
You heard that right. The video was released across all of CIA's social media channels. The video, voiced in Russian, features a 35-year-old male employee of the Russian intelligence agency questioning Moscow's policies amid the war in Ukraine. In the 3-minute video, the man suggests that Russian lawmakers have sold the country for palaces and yachts. In the end, the video gives out details on how to contact the CIA.
Now, this is the latest attempt by the CIA to recruit Russian officials as double agents. Last year, the intelligence agency launched a channel on Telegram that called for Russian defense officials with any information on top leadership to join the CIA. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin has called on the country's domestic security service to step up activity amid such threats.
In a statement, the Kremlin has rejected corruption allegations and has shrugged off the magnitude of the CIA recruitment video. Now, the question is, will the Kremlin allow an anti-war candidate to run for presidency?
Well, thousands of Russians are waiting for the answer there as they stand in long lines to show their support for Boris Nadezhdin.
Now, the 60-year-old running from the Civic Initiative Party has kindled hope for pro-peace Russians in an election that President Vladimir Putin is all but guaranteed to win.
Now, Nadezhdin is known for campaigning against Russia's actions in Ukraine. In his campaign manifesto, he has called himself a principled opponent of Putin's policies. He has repeatedly called for an end to the war against Kiev. If elected, he has promised to end mobilization, return Russian soldiers home and free political prisoners.
This comes as Moscow's war approaches its third year. In the latest, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that Russian missiles have hit Ukraine's two largest cities, killing at least 18 people, injuring over 130 and damaging homes and infrastructure.
Nadezhdin has urged his supporters to back his attempt to challenge Putin. The former MP needs at least 100,000 signatures from 40 regions across Russia to be registered for the tightly controlled polls. And in what is seen as a new form of anti-war protest, thousands in Moscow, St. Petersburg and across the country are leaving their signatures for Putin's potential opponent. They are waiting outside his campaign offices for hours to allow him to appear on the ballot in the March election. Now, Nadezhdin also has the support of a contingent of soldiers' wives who are unhappy with their husbands' long deployments. But getting on the ballot could be an uphill battle for him.
Now, Nadezhdin has been also backed by jailed opposition leader Alexei Navalny. The Kremlin critic has complained of being poisoned, assaulted and deprived of proper medical care. And this week he disclosed a new challenge, being forced to listen to a pro-Putin pop singer at 5 a.m. every morning. Well, with that, it's time now for a short break.
Don't go anywhere. This is World DNA. We will be back after this short break. When we come back, we're bringing you the updates from the Iranian army, which has significantly enhanced its aerial combat and reconnaissance capabilities with the acquisition of a large fleet of domestically developed drones. We'll get you the latest on that.
Also on the other side, in response to explosive growth in foreign student numbers, Canada unveiled a 2-year cap. All details on the other side.
Is data, like statistics, one of the dismal sciences, or is it fundamental to life and the consumer experience? And today on Trailblazers, Abhinav from College Deco, Yatnesh from Greenply, Baigul from Versuni, and Ashish from Home Credit India.
Marketing is all about science and art, and data is making it more scientific.
When you do the analyzing synthetic versus the real-time data, you pivot to the new business also. The same way the marketer has to see, they have to mix up both the data and they have to come out with their own observations also.
So what we're doing right now is actually using data to be able to predict which will be the right college for you based on psychometric tests as well as questionnaires that we roll out to the kids when they reach out to us for counseling.
For a customer to be able to decide from one business to another is about trust in a brand comes from things where underlining fact can be data, but the storytelling has to be very, very strong.
Tune in to the next episode to find out. I'm Jasper Reed, and this is Trailblazers.
We are one, you and I, burning in the sun, rising in the rain, one in celebration, one in pain, one in a tragedy, one for our rights, one in search of hope, one in our fights. One beyond borders. One beyond our race.
This could be one
in the face of adversity. We are one, you and I, and it's our right to know how and why. WION, you are more connected than you know.
I'm Vikram Chandra, and join me on WION with 2 weekly shows that will keep you informed. This World, a show that wraps the world's biggest global stories and brings you up close with the biggest newsmakers. This World is coming to you from London, from in front of the White House in Washington, D.C., from one of the most magical sites that I think I have ever been at.
It's completely feasible for India to become one of the world leaders in AI within the next decade or so.
The search for life in the universe is one of the greatest quests of all time.
And a show that aims to bring the India story to the world. We help you understand global developments from an Indian perspective.
We are developing the road infrastructure. In the end of 24, it will be equivalent to the road infrastructure of USA.
We have put up airports which were obliterated from the civil aviation map almost 50 years ago.
जो भी मेरे competitors हैं, उनके साथ हमारा सभी का आपस में एक अच्छा relation भी है. हम एक दूसरे को हमेशा push करते हैं अंदर खेलते टाइम भी.
I'm Vikram Chandra, and this is WION. World is one, taking India's voice to the world.
Welcome back to World DNA. Thank you so much for staying with us. So far on the show, we've covered the results of the New Hampshire primary, where Donald Trump has bagged a win over Nikki Haley.
Well, he's won the first 2 primaries now. After Iowa, now it was New Hampshire, and that honestly, going by precedent, that means that he will be the Republican candidate to go in for the presidential polls. But of course, all is not lost. Nikki Haley still vows that she will continue the fight, and we will be tracking all that's coming in from the US as it happens. All this and more right here on World DNA. Let's get you started with the other headlines we're tracking for you.
Former US President Donald Trump lands knockout blow to Nikki Haley in battle to become Republican presidential nominee in New Hampshire primary.
They have no idea who the hell they are. They come from prisons and they come from mental institutions, and it's just killing our country. And I'm talking about millions and millions and millions. They are drug dealers, they're everywhere.
Amid already escalating West Asia tensions, US carries out fresh airstrikes in Iraq, targeting facilities used by Iranian-backed militias following repeated attacks on US forces.
Lebanese militant group Hezbollah releases video launching missiles it claims were used to attack Israel's Mount Meron air base for the second time in a month. Pro-Palestinian protesters disrupt US President Joe Biden just a minute into his speech on abortion rights in Virginia.
The reason women are being...
Turkish parliament ratifies Sweden's NATO membership bid, clears biggest remaining hurdle to expanding the Western military alliance after a 20-month delay. The first major final of the post-Roman Abramovich era beckons for Chelsea. The Blues smashed 6 past second tier Middlesbrough to book a date at Wembley.
The Iranian army has significantly enhanced its aerial combat and reconnaissance capabilities with the acquisition of a large fleet of domestically developed drones. And today, I will decode the latest drones that have been commissioned into the Iranian army. The newly received unmanned aerial vehicles, they include the multi-purpose Ababil 4 and the Ababil 5, Arash and Karar jet-powered target drones. Now, these UAVs are equipped to perform a variety of missions, ranging right from reconnaissance and surveillance to patrolling, electronic warfare, then data gathering, and aerial combat as well. Starting with the Ababil 5, these drones can carry out both reconnaissance missions and engage ground targets as well. The drone can carry up to 6 km glide bombs or anti-air missiles, and optionally the drone can also be armed with a number of Iranian-produced Almas anti-tank guided missiles. Moreover, the drone can be employed in close-range aerial combat situations, and the drone can fly up to some 7,600 meters. That's about 7.6 kilometers, and it can also cruise at speeds between 150 to 200 kilometers per hour. That's the Ababil 5. Now, the Iranian army also received dozens of Karar 3 drones, which are turbo-powered, and these are capable of carrying a single munition. The drone can be equipped with the Iranian-produced Majid surface-to-air missile. Karar 3 drones have a range of 1,000 meters and cruise at high speeds, estimated at 700 kilometers per hour. Now, finally, the Arash 2. Now, this drone is one of the world's longest-range suicide drones. The Iranian-developed and produced drone can hit targets up to 2,000 kilometers away from the launch site. And the drone is capable of supporting a substantial payload as well. Now, as Iran unveils its new range of homegrown drones, China has vowed to protect Pakistan. Beijing has assured Islamabad of its support in defending its sovereignty and territorial integrity. And of course, all of this comes in the midst of the strikes which Iran carried out inside Pakistan, and of course Pakistan thereafter had carried out strikes inside Iran. The high tensions between Pakistan and Iran after the two nations carried out these airstrikes have been mounting. But as you can see, this was the area between the two nations. The Qusabs, the Jalek and Saravan inside Iran, and Qusabs in Pakistan. These were the areas where the airstrikes were executed. Qusabs in Pakistan's Balochistan province, and in retaliatory strikes, of course, Pakistan launched missile strikes in Saravan and Jalek areas, which are deep inside Iranian territory. Back to you.
Thank you so much for that report, Shivan. With that, let's shift our focus now. Over in Europe, the World Health Organization, it's raised concerns over record high cases of measles in Europe last year. The WHO has called for efforts to ramp up vaccination across the continent in light of the region witnessing over 30,000 cases of measles in 2023. Cases were reported in 40 of the 53 nations that fall under WHO's Europe region, which also includes Russia and Central Asia region. Between January and October last year, Russia and Kazakhstan witnessed 10,000 cases each, the highest in the region. Britain reported 183 cases, the highest in Western Europe. And between 2020 and 2022, close to 1.8 million infants in WHO-designated European region were not vaccinated. The latest statement also follows a sharp increase in the number of measles cases in the UK. Health officials in the country have urged millions of parents to book their children in for missed measles, mumps and rubella shots. Over 1,600 suspected measles cases have been reported in England and Wales. The combined measles, mumps and rubella or MMR vaccine is offered in the UK in 2 doses to all children.
Now, moving further, in what comes as more fresh trouble for Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, the head of UK's budget watchdog, Richard Hughes, has called the country's 2025 spending plans unsustainable.
Now, commenting on the plan's workability, Hughes called the spending plan unclear and said that it does not even qualify as a work of fiction, in fact. And the statement comes as the current spending review is set to expire by April 2025.
The review chalks out detailed plans for the expenditures of government departments beyond the fiscal year's end. UK's Office for Budget Responsibility is forced to base its forecast on assumptions over the government's daily capital expenditures. Richard Hughes also warned that the government post-election will have to rethink the government budget. Hughes expressed concern over government's ability to provide medical support to an aging population.
Now, since the financial crisis and the pandemic, UK's national debt has swollen from 40% to almost 100% of the country's GDP and shows no signs of reduction. Meanwhile, soaring debt and shrinking budget is not the only thing that the British government is facing. A senior Tory MP, Simon Clarke, has also called on Prime Minister Rishi Sunak to resign from his duties.
The former cabinet minister said that the Conservatives face, quote-unquote, an electoral massacre under Prime Minister Sunak's leadership. In an article, the former minister called the UK Prime Minister's leadership uninspiring. Following Tory MP Simon Clarke's statement, the head of One Nation caucus, Damien Green, took to his social media account on platform X to call Clarke's intervention wrong and unwise.
Liam Fox, the country's former defence secretary, also called out the statements of the Tory MP. Let's shift our focus to what's happening in the world of business now. And in response to the explosive growth in foreign student numbers, Canada has unveiled a 2-year cap, sending shockwaves through the academic circles and beyond.
Well, our next report delves into the intricacies of this decision, exploring its impact on post-grad permits, spousal eligibility and the wider economic landscape. Check it out.
Canada has announced a 2-year cap on the intake of foreign students, responding to a surge that saw nearly 1 million study permits issued last year alone. This marks a significant reduction by almost a third. This also reflects the government's response to an acute shortage in rental apartments and escalating rents nationwide. The new regulations extend far beyond student visas. Postgraduate work permits, previously considered a pathway to permanent residency, will now be limited. Those pursuing master's or postdoctorate programs remain eligible for a 3-year work permit. Spousal eligibility for international students in lower-level programs is also curtailed. These changes impact the economic landscape, with the educational sector facing disruptions. International students contribute approximately $16 billion annually to Canada's economy. Furthermore, businesses, including the food service industry, voice concerns about labor shortages. International students constituted 4.6% of the industry's workforce in 2023. Now, Canada's popularity among international students is evident from the data, with the majority, around 40%, hailing from India and China following at approximately 12%. The recent troubles with India continue to weigh on Canada's economy. The University of Toronto, a major academic institution, responds to the changes. The university expresses the need for a nuanced approach in the allocation of study permits. As the government aims to address both the housing crisis and concerns about quality of education, these changes signal a significant shift in Canada's approach to international students and economics. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
U.S. consumer product giant Johnson & Johnson has reached a tentative settlement to resolve probes by U.S. states.
Several states are probing whether the company misled consumers about the safety of its talc products. As part of the deal, which includes 42 states and Washington, D.C., the company has agreed to pay about $700 million to settle the states' claims. However, the settlement does not extend to private lawsuits against the company, some of which are expected to go to trial later this year.
Eric Haas, J&J's worldwide vice president of litigation, said in a statement, I'm quoting him here, consistent with the plan we outlined last year, the company continues to pursue several paths to achieve a comprehensive and final resolution of the talc litigation.
Johnson & Johnson has maintained that its now discontinued talc products do not cause cancer. The company still, however, faces 50,000 lawsuits over talc, most by women with ovarian cancer. It recently settled some of the cases involving people for an undisclosed amount that is a type of cancer linked to asbestos, a material that the company continues to maintain was not found in its talc. The company has also tried to resolve the cases by placing its talc liabilities into bankruptcy. But the courts have dismissed such attempts. Let's now take a look at all the developments that are coming in from the world of technology now. Amazon has been fined a $34 million fine in France for excessive worker surveillance. Amazon France Logistic, that oversees Amazon's warehouses, recorded workers' data through handheld scanners. The French Data Protection Agency found Amazon tracked activities so precisely that it led to workers having to justify each and every break.
Now, the Data Protection Agency even deemed Amazon's activity illegal and questioned why Amazon needed to keep workers' data for 31 days. The fine comes after France's Data Protection Agency opened its inquiry in 2019 following media articles and complaints by several thousand workers who were affected by the systems.
Continuing the layoff trend in the tech industry is Riot Games, which is ready to cut 11% of its staff, affecting 530 jobs. A statement issued to the staff mentioned that layoffs were necessary and were meant to create focus and move the company towards a sustainable future. The developer of League of Legends, Riot Games, said it had expanded its investments across too many areas and now was cutting back to focus on games. The company admitted to lacking a sharp focus due to investments not meeting expectations. Despite layoffs, Riot Gamers pledged 6 months of minimum salary, cash bonuses and benefits to its staff that it laid off. The company emphasized support services like job placement, counseling and visa assistance as well.
Now, this downsizing trend has affected various industries, including tech giants like Google and Amazon. Riot Games assured commitment to esports while adjusting its focus by discontinuing games such as Riot Forge after Bandle Tale and modifying Legends of Runeterra.
According to a new report, 7 out of 10 CEOs worldwide are gearing up to invest in generative artificial intelligence this year. Netcore Cloud, that's a global software as a service company, identified generative AI as its top investment priority, with CEOs, business leaders globally are anticipating significant returns with 3 to 5 years. That's after investing in these AI tools. The report also highlighted how consumer preferences reveals a strong inclination towards short-form video content and instant transactions.
The report mentioned that videos hold immense influence, with 90% of consumers relying on them for product decisions. This surge has driven business leaders to embrace influencer marketing, using short videos to spotlight their product lines.
Notably, 89% of the consumers admitted that watching a video played a major role in deciding on a product or service. Capturing the attention of 62.2% of its users, Instagram emerged as the second most engaging platform for exploring brands for consumers.
Meanwhile, on TikTok, 65% of users turn to online reviews and creator recommendations for well-informed online purchase decisions. The report also emphasized the significance of robust multi-channel engagement via store, mobile and online experiences for brands looking to make a mark in the market. The study revealed that companies embracing this approach could experience up to a 9.5% annual revenue surge. All right, over to sports next. The first major final of the post-Roman Abramovich era beckons for Chelsea. The big spending Blues smashed 6 past Middlesbrough to book a date at Wembley Stadium in the EFL Cup.
And second-tier club Borough travelled to Stamford Bridge, aiming to become the first team outside of the Premier League to reach the final in 11 years. The Michael Carrick coach side carried a 1-0 lead from the first leg, but a 15th-minute own goal tied the score on aggregate. Chelsea scored 3 more times in the first half through Enzo Fernandez, Axel Disasi and Cole Palmer to put the game to bed. Palmer scored again in the second half and Noni Modiku completed the rout before Morgan Rogers scored a consolation goal for the visitors. Chelsea will face either Liverpool or Fulham in the final.
LeBron James and Stephen Curry headline the 41-player pool